People compensate you not for your qualifications, but for the way you make them feel when they're around you. This might seem radical, yet it represents a fundamental truth that rarely gets acknowledged. There is a crucial lesson absent from traditional education: how to claim your inherent authority. Society conditions us to seek approval, accumulate validation, and pursue degrees, certifications, and external legitimacy. But consider this: many of the world's most influential voices never possessed conventional credentials. They didn't wait for authorization. They became the authorization themselves. They communicated from their essence, not from curriculum. And people invested in them, not because they held official qualifications, but because they embodied authenticity. Carl Jung, among psychology's most profound minds, introduced the concept of archetypes, universal patterns residing within every human being. These aren't earned through study, they're embodied through living, and recognizing this distinction transforms everything. This video explores how you can access that inherent power and monetize your authentic truth, regardless of formal education or professional titles. I'll demonstrate how your personal narrative becomes your qualification, and why that narrative holds more value than any diploma. Additionally, I'll expose the primary unconscious belief that prevents people from charging for their natural abilities and how to transform it. Let's begin with an uncomfortable reality. Information no longer commands payment. We're drowning in it. What people invest in now is transformation. They pay to feel recognized, held, witnessed. They pay to experience internal shifts. And transformation doesn't demand credentials. It requires clarity, genuineness, and emotional connection. That is what motivates financial investment. Not your resume, but your capacity to evoke something authentic. Imagine a 25-year-old who conquered anxiety and mastered self-regulation. A 45-year-old executive might pay them substantial amounts for similar guidance. Why? Because transformation transcends age, experience, or status. It follows truth and lived reality, yet countless people conceal their truth. They feel unprepared. They question their right to charge. Jung would identify this as the wounded ego speaking, the shadow self. Without healing this, without believing in your inherent value, no strategy, pricing model, or business mentor will help, because people perceive your energy before processing your words. That is the essential principle. Energy precedes evidence. People detect when you're secretly ashamed to charge. They sense when you're seeking permission, waiting for external validation of your legitimacy. The unconscious mind doesn't deceive. It recognizes what the ego attempts to mask. When you embody your message, when your voice carries the frequency of authenticity, it creates undeniable resonance. That is what generates trust. That is what people pay for. If you're wondering how to actually get people to invest in you, how to establish yourself as an authority without pretense, excellent. That indicates you're approaching a significant shift, because now we'll explore the precise mindset transformation that converts your story into your attraction force, and how to discover your archetype so you stop waiting for external permission. Consider this. Have you ever encountered someone without impressive titles, yet something about their presence drew you in? Their story, their honesty, their energy simply resonated deeply. That is embodied truth in action, and it is what people genuinely want to invest in. Let's establish this definitively. Your story is your certification. Every collapse, heartbreak, exhaustion, lowest point, revelation, quiet recovery, and midnight reflection. All of it matters, Jung called this individuation, the journey of becoming your authentic self beneath all facades. When you walk this path consciously, it becomes healing for others. Yet most people disown their medicine. They view their past as a disadvantage rather than an asset. They hide the very elements that make them human. That is the fundamental error, because what builds trust today isn't perfection, it is presence. Imagine two people offering identical services. One states, "I hold a certificate from XYZ Academy, 8 hours of training." The other says, "I've experienced this pain. I've walked your path, I've healed, and I'm here to accompany you." Who earns your trust? The first might capture attention, but the second captures hearts, because we're not hiring expertise alone. We're hiring resonance. We're drawn to those who've survived the fire and returned with stories that mirror our own. Jung said we don't achieve enlightenment by imagining light, but by making darkness conscious. That is what makes you valuable, not training, but transformation that creates emotional credibility. Not polished presentations or perfect branding, but being a mirror. This is where most people falter. They believe credibility means appearing professional, speaking like motivational speakers, faking confidence. But that only works when operating from the mind, not from truth. Remember this. Your pain isn't weakness. It is your portal. Your mess isn't your flaw. It is your magnet. Your story isn't a footnote. It is your superpower. The question is, are you owning it or still editing your life to appear professional? If you treated your story as sacred, how would you show up differently? Sit with that question, because the answers already exist within you. Let's explore something the business world barely acknowledges, but the soul world understands deeply. Those who transform lives aren't always the most educated. They're the ones who've integrated their truth. Jung called these people living archetypes. They don't perform roles. They embody energy. They manifest as the wise guide, healer, rebel, mentor, or alchemist. And that energetic clarity speaks louder than any sales pitch. They don't need to prove authority. They feel like authority. Here is the secret. People don't consciously pay for that, but their unconscious does. The unconscious mind responds to frequency, emotion, archetype. That is why someone might say, "I don't know why, but I felt I needed to work with you." That is resonance at work. That is what money follows. What archetype are you hiding from? Did life shape you as a healer, but you're afraid to claim it without medical credentials? Do you possess a rebellious spirit that questions systems, but you suppress it to remain respectable? Do people seek you for clarity and peace, but you still wonder who you are to charge? Jung would call this the unintegrated self, the part knowing your power but not yet trusting it. When you finally own your archetype unapologetically, something profound occurs. You no longer need to sell or perform. You become magnetic, because the world craves authenticity. People hunger to feel seen, and the most powerful offering is yourself, whole and unedited. Every archetype can... Money isn't reserved for strategists or salespeople. Money follows value, and every archetype creates value uniquely. If you've thought, "I'm just creative," or "I'm spiritual, not business-minded," or "I support others, but I'm not a leader," stop. You're not just anything. You carry an archetype designed for impact and income generation. The healer doesn't need therapy credentials. Your presence is medicine. Healers get paid to hold space coaches, energy workers, grief guides, breathwork facilitators. You earn by helping others return to themselves. People gladly invest in emotional safety. The rebel challenges systems and sees what is broken before others. Rebels earn by creating what doesn't yet exist: podcasts, movements, disruptive products, radical content. You say no more and build something better. People pay rebels to lead revolutions. The wise guide holds deep clarity and offers truth that cuts through noise. You earn by simplifying complexity, offering frameworks, philosophies, mentorship through YouTube, books, courses, or communities. People invest in your perspective. You help them make sense of life. The lover or empath is heart, centered and deeply caring. Your currency is compassion, whether in relationships, parenting, or work. You hold others through vulnerable transitions. People pay to feel safe, seen, and soothed in a world starving for softness. The creator or artist doesn't just make art. You transmit soul. Creators monetize through visual art, storytelling, music, design, intuitive branding. You help people feel alive. That is worth more than you realize. Beauty heals and beauty sells. The alchemist or mystic connects seen and unseen realms, from spiritual teachers to intuitive business coaches to tarot readers. Alchemists earn by translating energy into clarity. You give shape to mystery through rituals, ceremonies, spiritual frameworks. Spiritual work can be paid because transformation has value, even when intangible. You don't need to become someone else to get paid. You need to become more of who you already are. Every archetype has a prosperity pathway, but it only opens when you stop disowning your design. When you own it unapologetically, your audience can finally recognize what they've been seeking. Not an expert or guru or checklist, but a mirror. This extends beyond personal income. This is how we transform the world. When you embody your truth, not just speak or market it, but live it. You give others permission to do the same. Jung meant this when he said, the most dangerous thing is the unlived life. When we deny our gifts, we perpetuate societal numbness, burnout, and disconnection. But when you choose to live your archetype fully and freely, you become a walking invitation for healing. You reflect possibility. You shift consciousness, not through information, but through frequency. That is how we improve the world, not by climbing hierarchies or collecting trophies, but by declaring, this is who I am, this is what I've lived, and I offer it with love. And yes, people will pay for that, not because you manipulated them, but because you awakened something true within them. Now let's address the final internal block, preventing most people from stepping into this truth: their relationship with money itself. Many of us learned that being paid for our gifts is selfish, that helping others should involve sacrifice, that receiving is less spiritual than giving. This belief keeps the most heart, led people broke, burned out, and bitter. Here is what nobody tells you on a path of service, spirituality, or healing. If you subconsciously believe asking for money makes you greedy, if you carry guilt when someone pays you, if your nervous system contracts when stating your rates, people will feel that. Not because you're saying anything wrong, but because energy doesn't lie. Jung said the unconscious always communicates, even when the mouth doesn't. When you carry unhealed shame around being paid, it emerges in your posture, tone, marketing, boundaries, and ability to receive. People unconsciously respond to that energy. They either mirror your doubt or disappear. Let's name the root. Most of us grew up in systems teaching us, do good, but don't profit from it. Be humble, not wealthy. Money is for business people, not people like you. If it is spiritual, it should be free. But these beliefs aren't universal truths. They're inherited stories handed down by systems that benefit when powerful, intuitive heart let people stay small. Let's flip that script. Every time someone pays you, it is not a transaction. It is a transformation. They're investing in becoming more themselves. They're honoring their growth. They're committing to their healing. And you, through your gift, hold the mirror. When you receive money with integrity, you're not taking, you're circulating. You're keeping flow alive. You're allowing your cup to fill so you can pour into others sustainably. What happens when you can't pay bills, but you're expected to help others heal? You become resentful, exhausted, disconnected from the joy of your gift. That serves no one. But when you're nourished, when your needs are met, when your work is honored, when you feel valued, you show up brighter, you create deeper, you give from overflow, not obligation. That is what changes communities. That is what creates healing economies. That is what makes heart-led entrepreneurship revolutionary. It is not about chasing money. It is about aligning your energy so money becomes an extension of your purpose. Ask yourself, what old belief about money are you ready to release? What new truth are you willing to embody? Here is the reframe. Getting paid for your gifts isn't selfish. It is sacred. Earning from soul work isn't dirty. It is divine. Your worth isn't negotiable. It is encoded in your being. You don't need to hustle or beg. You just need to stop apologizing for existing. If this video resonated with your soul, share it with someone still waiting for permission. Drop this in the comments as your affirmation today. I am ready to be paid for being fully myself. Or write your own. Something that feels true in your body. Something your future self will thank you for claiming today. If you're ready to continue evolving and exploring transformational soul-based content, subscribe to Fractal Wisdom. This space is about waking up, owning your truth, and rewriting the story of worth and value from the inside out. Because the world doesn't need more professionals. It needs more people who remember who they are and charge accordingly. You're allowed to be seen, you're allowed to be supported, and you're allowed to be paid. Now go be who you are. The world is waiting.